The contraction hit like a freight train, and Lily doubled over in the hospital bed, her entire body screaming. Through the haze of pain, she heard his voice, cold and clinical, like he was discussing a business merger instead of watching the mother of his child suffer. "Sign here, Lily." And here. "Initial this page." Marcus Thompson stood beside her hospital bed in his $3,000 suit, silk tie perfectly knotted, holding a stack of legal documents in one hand and a pen in the other. His wedding ring caught the fluorescent lights, the same ring he'd worn when he married his new wife 3 months ago. The same ring he'd removed when he was married to Lily. Another contraction. Lily gasped, her hand instinctively going to her swollen belly. The monitors beside her bed beeped frantically. A nurse glanced through the window, concern flickering across her face. But Marcus waved her away with the casual authority of someone who believed his law degree made him untouchable. "Marcus, please," Lily managed between shallow breaths. "Can this wait? I'm about to have our baby." "Our baby?" He laughed, actually laughed. "No, Lily, this is your problem now. That's exactly why we need to finalize this before the birth certificate gets filed. Sign the papers. You're giving up all claims to marital assets, spousal support, and agreeing to sole custody with me having zero financial obligation beyond the state minimum. My name is Lily Chun, and 6 hours ago I went into labor with my first child. I'm 29 years old, and I never imagined that the most painful day of my life would have nothing to do with childbirth and everything to do with the man I'd once loved enough to marry. Marcus Thompson wasn't always like this. Or maybe he was, and I'd been too young and stupid to see it. We'd met in college, me studying graphic design, him already planning his path to becoming one of Seattle's top corporate attorneys. He'd been charming then, ambitious in a way that felt exciting rather than threatening. We got married right after he passed the bar exam. I was 24, working freelance design jobs, helping him study, believing in our future together. For 3 years, I supported his 80-hour work weeks, his obsession with making partner, his need to network at expensive dinners I couldn't afford. I ate ramen in our tiny apartment while he closed deals at steakhouses downtown. Then 2 months ago, when I told him I was pregnant, something shifted. Or rather, the mask finally fell off. A baby wasn't part of the plan, he'd said, staring at the positive pregnancy test like it was a court summons. I'm up for senior partner, Lily. I can't have this complication right now. Complication? I'd whispered, my hand already protective over my still flat stomach. This is our child. No, he'd corrected, his louder voice activating. This is your choice. I made my position clear years ago. No kids until I make senior partner. You knew that. What followed was 8 weeks of calculated cruelty that I didn't fully understand until much later. Marcus filed for divorce immediately, citing irreconcilable differences. He moved out within 48 hours, and exactly 1 week later, I saw the Instagram post. Marcus Thompson announces engagement to Victoria Ashford, daughter of Judge Richard Ashford. Victoria Ashford, 24 years old, trust fund, family connections that could fast-track Marcus's career in ways I never could. The judge's daughter, the perfect trophy wife, the woman who understood that ambition meant sacrifice and sacrifice meant people like me got left behind. Now in this hospital room, Marcus pushed the papers closer. I don't have all day, Lily. Victoria's waiting in the car. We have dinner reservations at 8. Another contraction. This one longer, harder. Lily's vision blurred with tears, though she couldn't tell if they were from physical pain or the emotional devastation of realizing the man she'd loved was capable of this level of cruelty. You're doing this now? She gasped. While I'm in labor. I'm doing this strategically, Marcus corrected, his tone the same one he probably used in depositions. You're vulnerable, distracted, in pain. You'll sign anything to make me go away. That's just smart legal tactics. He actually smiled when he said it, proud of himself, proud of his calculated cruelty. The nurse appeared again, her expression hardening when she saw the papers. Sir, this is highly inappropriate. The patient is in active labor. I'm her husband, Marcus lied smoothly. Ex-husband, he corrected with theatrical precision. And this is a legal matter that needs resolution before the birth. It's all perfectly within my rights. It wasn't, of course. But Marcus knew something important. People don't think clearly when they're in pain. They don't read documents carefully. They don't notice clauses that sign away everything they're legally entitled to. Lily looked down at the papers through tears. She saw her name, saw Marcus's name, saw numbers and legal terms that swam together like alphabet soup. She saw the custody arrangement that gave him zero responsibility, the asset division that left her with nothing from their marriage, the clause that waived all future claims to his income, his property, his everything. "If you don't sign," Marcus said quietly, leaning close enough that only she could hear, "I will make your life a legal nightmare. I will drag you through courts for years. I will use every connection, every loophole, every dirty trick I know. And Lily, I know a lot of them. Or you can sign now, take your baby and walk away. Your choice." Another contraction. Longer. Harder. The monitor's beeping accelerated. Lily's hand shook as she reached for the pen. Marcus's smile widened, victorious. He'd won just like he always won. Just like his career taught him to win, by being more ruthless than everyone else. But what Marcus didn't see, what he was too arrogant and too certain of his own brilliance to notice, was the way Lily's eyes had cleared for just a moment between contractions. The way her hand steadied slightly as she took the pen. The way she signed the papers with her left hand instead of her right. The signature just different enough. The initials just sloppy enough. She handed the papers back, and Marcus didn't even check them carefully. Why would he? He'd won. "Good girl," he said, patronizing and cruel. He tucked the papers into his briefcase, straightened his tie, and walked toward the door. Then he paused, turned back. "Oh, and Lily, don't contact me again. Not for money, not for help, not for anything. We're done." He left. Just walked out while Lily was having contractions that would bring his daughter into the world within the next few hours. The nurse rushed over, checking monitors, adjusting IVs. "Oh, honey," she whispered. "I'm so sorry you had to deal with that." But Lily wasn't crying anymore. Her hands had stopped shaking. Between contractions, she reached for her phone and sent a single text message to a number she'd saved 2 weeks ago. When she first started suspecting Marcus might try something exactly like this, the response came back immediately. "I saw. Hospital security cameras got everything. See you in 48 hours. If you're enjoying this story and wondering how someone could possibly come back from this kind of betrayal, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what happens next will redefine everything you think you know about revenge." Marcus Thompson thought he'd won by being smarter, more ruthless, more prepared than his pregnant ex-wife. What he didn't know was that Lily had been preparing too. And unlike Marcus, who relied on cruelty and legal loopholes, Lily had spent the past 8 weeks building something far more dangerous. A strategy built on patience, documentation, and one very specific ally who'd been waiting for exactly this moment. 48 hours. That's all the time Marcus had left to enjoy his victory before everything he'd built came crashing down. 8 hours later, Lily held her daughter for the first time. 6 pounds, 3 ounces. 10 perfect fingers. 10 perfect toes. Dark hair Marcus's nose but her eyes. Those were all hers. "What's her name?" the nurse asked gently. "Grace," Lily whispered, looking down at the tiny face. "Her name is Grace. Grace Chen. Not Grace Thompson." Lily had made that decision weeks ago, when she'd filed the paperwork to reclaim her maiden name. One small act of defiance that Marcus hadn't even noticed, because he'd stopped paying attention to anything that didn't directly benefit him. The hospital room felt empty without anyone there to celebrate. No husband taking photos, no family bringing balloons. Lily's parents had died in a car accident when she was 22, one of the reasons she'd clung so hard to Marcus when they met. He'd been her family, or so she'd thought. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, but she knew who it was. "Congratulations on Grace. Rest tonight. Tomorrow we begin." Lily deleted the message immediately, a habit she'd developed over the past 2 weeks. No digital trail. That's what she'd been taught. Across the city, Marcus was celebrating his victory at Canlis, Seattle's most expensive restaurant. Victoria sat across from him, diamond bracelet catching candlelight, posting carefully curated photos to Instagram with captions like, "Celebrating with my amazing husband," and "Living our best life." "So it's done?" Victoria asked, sipping champagne that cost more than Lily's monthly rent. "Completely done," Marcus confirmed, cutting into a steak that cost $180. "She signed everything. No claims to assets, no spousal support, minimal child support that I can easily afford. And the best part? She did it while she was in labor, so if she ever tries to challenge it, I'll argue she was under duress and not thinking clearly. Either way, I win." Victoria laughed, that practiced social laugh she'd perfected at country club events. "You're brilliant, you know that?" "I know," Marcus said, without a trace of humility. "Judge Ashford called today, by the way. The senior partner vote is next week, and he's confirmed that all 3 partners are voting yes. I'm in youngest senior partner in the firm's history." What Marcus didn't know was that one of the waiters, a college student named David who was working his way through law school, had his phone propped up behind the wine rack, recording everything. David was the nephew of the woman Lily had texted from the hospital. The woman whose number Marcus would never have recognized because he'd been too arrogant to imagine his ex-wife could have powerful allies. The next morning, Lily was discharged from the hospital. No car seat, so the nurse called a lift for her. No baby supplies waiting at home because Marcus had taken everything from their apartment when he moved out, including the crib they'd bought together before he decided fatherhood wasn't part of his timeline. The Lyft driver, a woman in her 50s, helped Lily carry Grace up 3 flights of stairs to the studio apartment Lily had rented with the last of her savings. 400 square feet. A mattress on the floor. A mini fridge that hummed too loud. The kind of place Marcus would have called beneath him, even when he was a struggling law student. "You take care of that baby," the driver said kindly, refusing the tip Lily tried to give her. "And honey, whatever you're going through, it gets better." "I promise. If only she knew," Lily thought, closing the door behind her. Grace started crying immediately, that newborn wail that meant hunger. Lily had no formula yet, no bottles, nothing. She'd planned to breastfeed, but her milk hadn't come in yet. Panic started to set in. Her phone rang. A number she recognized now. "There's a package outside your door," the voice said. "Everything you need for the next week. And Lily, I need you to meet me tomorrow afternoon. 2:00. The address is in the box." "Thank you," Lily whispered, opening the door to find a large box filled with diapers, formula, bottles, baby clothes, even a portable bassinet. Tears streamed down her face. "Thank you so much." "Save your tears," the voice said, not unkindly. "You're going to need that energy for what comes next. Get some rest." The line went dead. Meanwhile, Marcus's Instagram was exploding. Victoria had posted photos from their dinner, and the comments were full of congratulations and admiration. "Power couple," someone wrote. "Goals," wrote another. "You two are perfect together." What they didn't see were the photos Marcus had deleted, the ones from 5 years ago when he'd posted similar things about Lily. "My beautiful wife," those captions had said. "Lucky man." Forever. Forever had lasted exactly as long as it was convenient. That night, while Grace slept in her donated bassinet, Lily pulled out a folder she'd been building for 8 weeks. Ever since the day Marcus announced he wanted a divorce, something in Lily had shifted. The graphic designer who'd spent years making other people's visions come to life had started documenting her own story with meticulous precision. Bank statements showing how Marcus had drained their joint account 3 days after filing for divorce. Text messages where he'd promised to support the baby, then deleted those messages, not knowing Lily had screenshotted everything. Emails to his law firm claiming he was working late when he was actually having dinner with Victoria, timestamped and geotagged. And the piece of resistance, the hospital security footage that her mysterious ally had mentioned. Footage of Marcus forcing a woman in active labor to sign legal documents. Footage that would make any judge question his character, his ethics, his right to practice law. But Lily had learned something important from being married to Marcus Thompson. Timing was everything. Strike too early and your opponent has time to prepare a defense. Strike too late and the moment passes. 48 hours. That was the window. That was how long it would take for Marcus to file the signed documents with the court, to make everything official, to believe he truly won. And that's exactly when Lily would strike. The next afternoon, Lily took an Uber to a downtown office building, Grace strapped to her chest in a baby carrier. The address led her to the 15th floor, to a suite with frosted glass doors and a simple placard. Chun and Associates Family Law. Lily's breath caught. Chun, her maiden name. The door opened before she could knock. A woman in her 60s stood there, elegant in a gray suit, her hair pulled back in a bun. She had Lily's eyes. Lily's nose. "Hello, niece," the woman said, smiling. "I'm Margaret Chen, your father's sister. I think it's time we talked." Lily had never met her aunt. Her father had been estranged from his family before she was born. Some argument about tradition and expectations that he'd never fully explained. When her parents died, Lily had tried to find relatives, but the trail went cold. Until 2 weeks ago, when a letter arrived at her apartment. A letter explaining that Margaret Chen had been searching for her niece for years, had finally found her through a private investigator, and had been horrified to discover what Marcus was doing to her. "I'm a family law attorney," Margaret explained, gesturing for Lily to sit. "I've been practicing for 35 years. I've seen men like Marcus Thompson destroy women who trusted them. But Lily, I've also seen those women fight back and win. And with what we've collected over the past 2 weeks, Marcus Thompson is about to learn a very expensive lesson about underestimating the women he hurts." On the conference table lay folders, each labeled and organized. "Hospital security footage," one read. "Financial fraud," said another. "Witness statements. Character evidence. Bar association violations." "Did he really think," Margaret said, her voice cold with professional rage, "that forcing someone to sign legal documents while they're in labor would hold up in court? Did he really think that draining joint accounts and hiding assets during divorce proceedings wouldn't constitute fraud? Did he really think that no one was watching?" Lily looked down at Grace, sleeping peacefully against her chest. "He thought I was alone. He thought I was powerless. He thought wrong," Margaret said. Now, let me explain exactly how we're going to destroy him." And for the first time since that positive pregnancy test 8 months ago, Lily smiled. Not a sad smile, not a broken smile, but the smile of someone who just realized they'd been playing chess while their opponent thought they were playing checkers. Marcus Thompson had 48 hours left of his perfect life. He just didn't know the clock had already started counting down. Margaret spread the documents across the conference table like a general planning a military campaign. Each folder represented a different weapon in their arsenal, and she explained them with the precision of someone who'd spent decades dismantling men like Marcus. "Here's what he doesn't understand about family law," Margaret began, pulling out the hospital footage on her laptop. "Coercion invalidates contracts. Any first-year law student knows this. But Marcus got arrogant. He thought his tactics were clever when really, he just handed us everything we need to bury him." Lily watched the footage. There she was, clearly in active labor, monitors beeping frantically, while Marcus stood over her with documents. The audio was crystal clear. "You're vulnerable, distracted, in pain. You'll sign anything to make me go away. That's just smart legal tactics." "He said that," Margaret whispered, her voice tight with controlled fury. "On camera, he admitted to exploiting your vulnerable state. That's not just grounds to void the agreement, Lily. That's potential grounds for a bar association complaint. Attorneys can't use coercive tactics on opposing parties, especially when those parties aren't represented by counsel." "But I signed them," Lily said quietly. "Even if I was in pain, I still signed." Margaret's smile was sharp. "Did you? Let me see the papers Marcus filed this morning." She pulled up digital copies on her screen. Lily's signature looked shaky, wrong. Because it was wrong. She'd signed with her left hand, deliberately making it inconsistent with her actual signature on file. Signature doesn't match your driver's license, your marriage certificate, or any legal document you've ever signed, Margaret said. Add that to the coercion evidence, and we have grounds to void everything. But Lily, we're not just voiding it. We're going nuclear. Over the next hour, Margaret laid out the strategy. They weren't just fighting for what Lily deserved from the divorce. They were exposing every dirty trick Marcus had pulled, every law he'd bent, every ethical line he'd crossed. Financial discovery shows he transferred $85,000 from your joint account into a personal account 3 days after filing for divorce, Margaret explained. That's marital asset concealment. Then he purchased a luxury car for Victoria using marital funds before the divorce was finalized. That's fraud. She clicked to another folder. His firm has a strict ethics policy about conflicts of interest. Marcus represented 3 clients in divorce proceedings over the past year while he was planning his own divorce. He used strategies and loopholes he learned from those cases to structure his divorce from you. That's potentially attorney-client privilege violation if he applied their confidential strategies to his personal situation. Lily felt her head spinning. How did you get all this? I have 35 years of connections, Margaret said simply. And when I put the word out that Marcus Thompson was forcing his pregnant wife to sign documents during labor, a lot of people who'd been waiting for a chance to take him down suddenly became very cooperative. She pulled out another folder. Victoria Ashford posted photos from their dinner last night. The restaurant, the champagne, the celebration. But what she didn't notice was the waiter in the background who recorded their conversation. Margaret played the audio. Marcus's voice filled the conference room. She signed everything. No claims to assets, no spousal support, minimal child support that I can easily afford. And the best part? She did it while she was in labor, so if she ever tries to challenge it, I'll argue she was under duress and not thinking clearly. Either way, I win. Lily's hands clenched. He'd known it was wrong, known it was exploitative, and he'd done it anyway because he thought he was smarter than everyone else. He's celebrating coercion, Margaret said coldly. On recording, in front of witnesses, while committing ethics violations. Lily, your ex-husband just gave us enough ammunition to end his career. But they needed one more piece, something that would make the story undeniable, that would turn public opinion so completely against Marcus that even his powerful connections couldn't save him. That piece came the next morning. Marcus posted on LinkedIn, "Honored to announce my promotion to senior partner at Thompson & Associates. Grateful for this opportunity to continue serving our clients with integrity and excellence." The comments flooded in. Congratulations from judges, other attorneys, business leaders. Victoria shared it to her Instagram with the caption, "So proud of my husband. He worked so hard for this." What Marcus didn't know was that 3 of his former clients had reached out to Margaret after seeing the post. 3 women he'd represented in divorce cases, who'd trusted him to fight for them, who'd paid him tens of thousands of dollars. He told me my case was hopeless. One woman told Margaret over the phone. Said I should just accept my husband's lowball offer. Then I found out later that my ex's attorney was Marcus's golf buddy. They split fees on cases where they were on opposite sides. Another woman. Marcus convinced me to waive spousal support in exchange for a quick settlement. Said it was my best option. Then I discovered he'd undervalued our assets by almost $200,000. When I confronted him, he threatened to withdraw as my attorney right before trial. A third. He dated me while he was representing me in my divorce. We slept together, and then suddenly he was telling me I owed him more money because my case was more complicated than anticipated. When I refused, he botched my court appearance on purpose. Margaret documented everything. Recorded phone calls with permission, affidavits, financial records. A pattern of ethical violations spanning years, all protected by the fact that Marcus's clients were vulnerable women going through divorces who didn't know they could report him. This isn't just about your divorce anymore, Margaret told Lily that evening. This is about stopping him from doing this to anyone else. Are you ready for what comes next? Because once we file these complaints, once we go public, there's no going back. Marcus will come after you with everything he has. Lily looked down at Grace, sleeping peacefully in her carrier. She thought about every woman Marcus had exploited, every client he'd failed, every person he'd stepped on to climb his ladder of success. "I'm ready," she said. "Good," Margaret replied. "Because tomorrow morning, we're filing with the Bar Association, the court, and every media outlet in Seattle." And Lily, I've saved the best part for last. She pulled out one final folder. Remember how Marcus kept bragging about his promotion? About Judge Ashford supporting him? About his perfect new life with Victoria? Lily nodded. Judge Ashford's wife reached out to me yesterday. Apparently, she and Victoria don't have the loving mother-daughter relationship Marcus thinks they do. Mrs. Ashford has been watching Marcus manipulate her daughter, has been listening to Victoria parrot his talking points about gold digger ex-wives and bitter women who can't let go. And she's had enough. Margaret smiled. Mrs. Ashford is prepared to testify that Marcus approached Judge Ashford before the divorce was even filed, asking for advice on how to minimize his obligations. That's ex parte communication with a sitting judge about a potential case. That's grounds for judicial misconduct and attorney disbarment. Lily felt the air leave her lungs. He did that. He did that because he's arrogant enough to think that connections and money can override ethics and law. But Marcus made one critical mistake. What's that? He assumed you were alone. He assumed you were powerless. He assumed that a woman recovering from childbirth with no family and no resources couldn't possibly fight back. But Marcus never considered that you might have family he didn't know about. Family with connections, with resources, with 35 years of experience taking down men exactly like him. Margaret handed Lily a document. This is the official complaint we're filing tomorrow. Read it tonight. Make sure you're comfortable with everything. And Lily, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., when Marcus is sitting in his senior partner office for the first time, celebrating his victory, he's going to get a call that changes his life forever. That night, Marcus posted another photo to Instagram. Him in his new office, nameplate gleaming, Marcus Thompson, senior partner. The caption read, "Hard work pays off. Never stop grinding." The comments were full of praise. But one comment, from an account with no profile picture and a generic name, simply said, "Enjoy it while it lasts." Marcus deleted it immediately, annoyed but not concerned. Just some internet troll. Probably a former client who didn't get the outcome they wanted. He had no idea that in less than 12 hours, his entire world would collapse. No idea that the woman he'd exploited, humiliated, and discarded had spent the past 48 hours building a case that would not only destroy his career, but expose him as the fraud he'd always been. But Marcus was about to learn something. Lily had known all along. The most dangerous opponent isn't the one who screams and fights back immediately. It's the one who stays quiet, documents everything, and strikes when you're too arrogant to see it coming. Marcus Thompson arrived at his new senior partner office at 7:30 a.m., 2 hours before anyone else. He wanted to savor the moment alone. The mahogany desk, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay. The nameplate that read, Marcus Thompson, senior partner, in gold lettering. He took a photo for Instagram, crafted the perfect caption about hard work and dedication, and posted it at exactly 8 a.m. Within minutes, the likes and congratulations poured in. At 8:47 a.m., his phone rang. The Bar Association. "Mr. Thompson, this is Patricia Winters from the Washington State Bar Association. We've received a formal complaint regarding your conduct in multiple matters. We need you to come to our offices immediately." Marcus felt a flicker of irritation but no real concern. "I have a full schedule today. Can we reschedule for next week?" "No, Mr. Thompson, this is time sensitive. We've also been contacted by King County Superior Court regarding irregularities in your recent divorce filing. You need to be here within the hour, or we'll be forced to issue a formal summons." The irritation became unease. What complaint? What irregularities? "We'll discuss that when you arrive." 9:45, Mr. Thompson. "Don't be late." She hung up. Marcus immediately called his attorney, Richard Chen, one of the best defense lawyers in Seattle. The phone rang 4 times before going to voicemail. He tried again. Voicemail. A 3rd time. Finally, a text came through. "Can't represent you. Conflict of interest." Good luck. Conflict of interest? What the hell did that mean? At 9:03 a.m., his office phone rang. Judge Ashford. "Marcus, we need to talk. Now, my chamber's 30 minutes. Your Honor, I just got a call from the Bar Association. I know about the Bar Association." Judge Ashford interrupted, his voice colder than Marcus had ever heard it. "I know about a lot of things, apparently. Things my wife felt compelled to tell me this morning. Things that, if true, Marcus, mean you manipulated me into committing judicial misconduct. 30 minutes. The line went dead. Marcus's hands started shaking. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. At 9:15 a.m., his email pinged. A message from the managing partner. Emergency partners meeting. Conference room. Now. Marcus walked down the hall on legs that felt uncertain. The conference room held all 7 partners, their faces grim. The managing partner, Harold Stevens, gestured to a chair. Marcus, we've received documentation this morning that alleges serious ethical violations. Hospital security footage of you coercing your ex-wife into signing documents while she was in active labor. Audio recordings of you admitting to exploitation. Financial records showing asset concealment. And testimonies from 3 former clients alleging misconduct. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. Those are fabrications. My ex-wife is bitter about the divorce. She's making things up. Double quotes. Harold slid a laptop across the table. Watch. The video played. There was Marcus in Lily's hospital room, clear as day. You're vulnerable. Distracted, in pain. You'll sign anything to make me go away. That's just smart legal tactics. Then the audio from the restaurant. She signed everything while she was in labor. So if she ever tries to challenge it, I'll argue she was under duress. Either way, I win. Marcus's stomach dropped. How did you get those? That's your question. Another partner asked, her voice sharp with disgust. Not these allegations are false, but how did you get evidence of my misconduct? The Bar Association is investigating, Harold continued. The court has been notified. And Marcus, 3 major clients just called this morning threatening to pull their accounts if we don't terminate you immediately. The Seattle Times has the story. It goes live in 1 hour. You can't fire me, Marcus said, his voice rising. I just made senior partner. We have a contract. Read your contract, Harold said coldly. Section 12, subsection 4. Termination for cause includes ethical violations that bring disrepute to the firm. You exploited a woman in labor, Marcus. You recorded yourself bragging about it. You committed financial fraud during your own divorce while representing other divorce clients. You used strategies from their cases for personal gain. That's not just grounds for termination. That's grounds for disbarment. At 9:47 a.m., Marcus's phone exploded with notifications. The Seattle Times had published early. Senior partner accused of coercing ex-wife during labor. Bar Association investigates. The article had everything. The hospital footage embedded in the piece. Quotes from Margaret Chen, identified as veteran family law attorney and aunt of the victim. Statements from the 3 former clients. Financial records showing asset concealment. And a photograph of Lily holding newborn Grace in the hospital, taken hours after Marcus had forced her to sign. The comments section was brutal. This man is a monster. Forcing someone to sign legal documents during labor? How is he not in jail? I hope she takes everything from him. His new wife must be so proud. Victoria. Marcus grabbed his phone and called her. It rang once before going to voicemail. He tried again. Blocked. A text came through from Victoria's number, but it wasn't Victoria writing. This is Victoria's mother. My daughter will not be speaking with you. Ever again. She's filing for annulment as we speak. And Marcus, my husband wants you to know that the Judicial Ethics Board will be reviewing his interactions with you. If his career is damaged because of your manipulation, you'll be hearing from our attorneys. Lose this number. At 10:23 a.m., Marcus sat in the Bar Association office, facing a panel of 3 attorneys who looked at him with barely concealed contempt. They played the hospital footage again. Played the restaurant audio. Presented financial documents showing his asset concealment. Mr. Thompson, the lead investigator said, in my 20 years doing this work, I've never seen such a clear-cut case of ethical violations. You exploited someone in active labor. You admitted to coercion on recording. You committed financial fraud. You may have violated attorney-client privilege by using confidential case strategies for personal gain. And you attempted to use ex parte communication with a judge to influence your own case. I want to make a statement, Marcus said, his voice desperate. "I want to explain." "Save it for your hearing," the investigator interrupted. "You're suspended from practice effective immediately pending full investigation. You have 30 days to respond to formal charges. And Mr. Thompson, I suggest you hire the best defense attorney you can find, because we're recommending disbarment." By noon, Marcus's Instagram and LinkedIn were flooded with comments calling for his disbarment, calling him a monster, sharing the Seattle Times article. He made everything private, but screenshots were already everywhere. By 1 p.m., he'd been officially terminated from the firm. Security escorted him out with a box of personal items, past associates and staff who wouldn't meet his eyes. By 2 p.m., Judge Ashford had recused himself from all pending cases and issued a public statement about being manipulated into potential misconduct, throwing Marcus completely under the bus to save his own career. By 3 p.m., Victoria had posted a statement to Instagram. "I was deceived by someone I trusted. I'm heartbroken to learn the truth about Marcus Thompson's character. I support his ex-wife completely and apologize for any pain my involvement may have caused her." Marcus sat in his luxury apartment, the one he'd rented with money he'd stolen from Lily, watching his entire life disintegrate in real time on social media. His phone kept ringing reporters, former colleagues, people wanting statements. Then one call came through that made his blood run cold. "Margaret Chen. Mr. Thompson, this is Margaret Chen, representing Lily Thompson in her divorce proceedings. We're filing an emergency motion tomorrow to void your fraudulent agreement, seeking full discovery of all marital assets, requesting maximum spousal support, and pursuing charges for financial fraud and coercion. We'll also be filing a civil lawsuit for emotional distress. And Marcus, every media outlet in Seattle will be in that courtroom." "You can't do this," Marcus whispered. "I'll fight this." "I have resources." "You had resources," Margaret corrected. Past tense. "You're unemployed under investigation and about to be sued for everything you've stolen. But here's what I really called to tell you. Lily wanted you to know that she never signed those papers. Not really. She signed with her left hand, deliberately making the signature invalid. She knew you wouldn't check carefully because you were too arrogant to imagine she might outsmart you." Marcus felt like he'd been punched. She planned this. She documented everything from the moment you asked for a divorce. Every text, every transaction, every threat. And when you made the mistake of forcing her to sign documents while she was in labor, you handed her the final piece she needed to destroy you. If you're wondering how someone manages to stay that focused while recovering from childbirth, ask yourself, what kind of rage does it take to fuel that level of determination? The line went dead. Marcus threw his phone across the room. This couldn't be happening. Lily was supposed to be weak, powerless, alone. She was supposed to disappear with her baby and her poverty and leave him to his perfect life. How had she done this? And then he remembered something Lily had told him once. Years ago when they were happy. "My father always said the most dangerous opponent is the one who's patient enough to let you think you've won." Marcus had laughed at that advice back then. He wasn't laughing now. If you think this is where the story ends, you're wrong. Subscribe to see how Lily turns her victory into something even Marcus never saw coming. Because revenge isn't just about winning once, it's about making sure they never forget what it cost them to underestimate you. That evening, Marcus received one final message. From Lily's number. Just 3 words. "See you tomorrow." Tomorrow. The emergency court hearing where every dirty secret, every lie, every fraud would be exposed in open court. Where reporters would document his complete destruction. Where he'd have to face Lily and Grace, and the consequences of every cruel choice he'd made. Marcus Thompson had spent his entire career believing that being smarter and more ruthless than everyone else was the key to success. But he'd forgotten one crucial truth. Intelligence without integrity is just manipulation. And manipulation only works until someone smarter comes along. Lily had been smarter. She'd been patient. And she'd been absolutely ruthless in the way that only someone protecting their child can be. 48 hours. That's all it had taken to dismantle a career built on exploitation and cruelty. And Marcus was about to learn that losing everything was just the beginning. The King County Courthouse was packed. Every seat filled with reporters, law students, former clients of Marcus, and attorneys who'd heard about the case and wanted to witness what many were calling the most spectacular professional implosion in Seattle legal history. Lily walked in wearing a simple navy dress, Grace in a carrier against her chest. Margaret walked beside her, carrying 3 folders of evidence they wouldn't even need. Marcus had already lost before the hearing began. He sat at the defendant's table with a court-appointed attorney because no one else would represent him. His expensive suit looked the same, but everything else had changed. His face was gaunt, his eyes had dark circles, and his hands shook slightly as he avoided looking at Lily. Judge Patricia Morrison, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, reviewed the documents with an expression of barely concealed disgust. "Mr. Thompson," she began, "I've been on the bench for 19 years. I've seen a lot of reprehensible behavior. But forcing your ex-wife to sign legal documents while she was in active labor might be the most callous act I've encountered in this courtroom." "Your Honor, Marcus started. "I'm not finished," Judge Morrison cut him off. "The agreement you obtained through coercion is void. Completely void. Every clause, every waiver, every signature. It has no legal standing whatsoever." She turned to Lily. "Ms. Chun, I'm granting your motion for emergency spousal support in the amount of $6,500 per month. Child support will be set at $3,200 monthly. Mr. Thompson will also be responsible for all medical expenses related to Grace's birth and ongoing care." Marcus's face went white. "Your Honor, I'm currently unemployed." "I can't afford. You should have considered that before committing fraud," Judge Morrison said coldly. "The court finds that you deliberately concealed and transferred $85,000 in marital assets. You will return that full amount to Ms. Chun within 60 days, plus interest. Additionally, the luxury vehicle you purchased for Ms. Ashford using marital funds will be sold, with proceeds going to Ms. Chen." Margaret stood. "Your Honor, we're also requesting the court order Mr. Thompson to cover Ms. Chun's legal fees, which currently total $47,000. "Granted," Judge Morrison said without hesitation. "Mr. Thompson, you will also pay all of Ms. Chun's legal fees associated with correcting the damage you caused." The numbers kept piling up. Marcus was looking at over $200,000 in immediate obligations, with nearly $10,000 in monthly payments, and he had no income. "Furthermore," Judge Morrison continued, "I'm issuing a restraining order. Mr. Thompson, you are not to contact Ms. Chun directly for any reason. All communication regarding your daughter will go through Ms. Chun's attorney. And Mr. Thompson, if you even think about retaliating against Ms. Chun, or interfering with her life in any way, I will hold you in contempt so fast it'll make your head spin." The hearing lasted 40 minutes. Marcus left the courthouse through a side door, surrounded by reporters shouting questions he refused to answer. One asked, "Mr. Thompson, do you have anything to say to your ex-wife?" He said nothing. Because what could he say? That he was sorry? That he'd made mistakes? Those words meant nothing now. 3 weeks later, the Bar Association's decision came down. Disbarred. Permanently. Marcus Thompson would never practice law again in Washington state. The decision cited egregious ethical violations, systematic exploitation of vulnerable clients, fraud, and conduct unbecoming of an attorney. His LinkedIn profile, once full of congratulations and professional achievements, was deleted. His Instagram, once showcasing his luxury lifestyle, disappeared. Marcus Thompson had become a cautionary tale, the subject of legal ethics lectures titled, "When Ambition Becomes Abuse." Victoria Ashford got her annulment and immediately distanced herself from the entire situation. She posted one final statement. "I was young and foolish. I believed someone who was very good at lying. I've learned a painful lesson about character versus charisma." Then she moved to Portland and never mentioned Marcus again. Judge Ashford survived the scandal barely. He faced censure but not removal, having cooperated fully with the investigation and thrown Marcus under the bus with such efficiency that it was clear he'd been waiting for an excuse to do so. Meanwhile, Lily's life transformed in ways she never imagined. The $85,000 Marcus returned became a down payment on a real house. Not a mansion, but a 3-bedroom home in a safe neighborhood with a yard where Grace could play someday. The monthly support payments, combined with Lily relaunching her graphic design business from home, gave her financial stability for the first time since the divorce. But more than the money, more than the house, Lily had something Marcus could never touch: peace. She'd wake up each morning to Grace's sounds, make coffee in her own kitchen, and work on design projects for clients who respected her talent. No more checking bank accounts in fear. No more skipping meals to save money. No more wondering how she'd survive. Margaret became not just her attorney but family. Real family. The Aunt Lily had never known became the grandmother Grace needed, showing up for birthdays and holidays, teaching Lily about their family history, filling in the gaps that her father's estrangement had left. 6 months after the hearing, Lily received a call from a women's advocacy organization. They wanted her to speak at an event about surviving divorce from an abusive partner, about fighting back against exploitation, about refusing to accept defeat. "I'm not a public speaker," Lily protested. "You don't have to be," the organizer said. "You just have to tell your story. Because there are thousands of women out there right now in hospital beds, in labor, being pressured to sign things they shouldn't sign. And they need to know that fighting back is possible." Lily spoke at that event. Then another. Then another. Her story spread, not because she sought fame, but because it resonated with so many women who'd been told they were powerless. A year after the courthouse hearing, Lily sat in her living room watching Grace take her first wobbly steps. Her phone buzzed with a news alert. Former attorney Marcus Thompson declares bankruptcy, loses luxury apartment. She felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, just nothing. Marcus had become irrelevant to her life, a cautionary tale she occasionally referenced in speeches, but otherwise rarely thought about. That same week, Lily landed her biggest design contract yet. A complete branding package for a startup founded by women who'd survived financial abuse. The company's mission was to help women rebuild after divorce, offering everything from legal resources to career coaching. "We want you to be our lead designer," the founder said. "Your story inspired this entire company. It seems right that you help us tell it visually." Marcus, meanwhile, lived in a studio apartment in Tacoma, working part-time at a legal document preparation service, the kind of place where people who can't afford real attorneys go for help with paperwork. He wasn't practicing law, wasn't even pretending to. Just filing forms, making copies, trying to pay down the debt that would follow him for years. Some of his former colleagues occasionally saw him around town. They never said hello. He'd become invisible. The kind of cautionary tale people whispered about, but never acknowledged directly. One afternoon, Marcus walked past a bus stop and saw an advertisement. Women Rising Above. A conference for survivors. There was a photo of Lily, smiling, holding Grace, with the caption, "Keynote speaker, Lily Chen. Designer, advocate, survivor." He stood there staring at that photo for a long moment. She looked happy. Actually happy. Grace was almost 2 years old in the picture, smiling at the camera with Lily's eyes and his nose, a daughter he had no relationship with, no connection to, because he'd traded fatherhood for a promotion that lasted less than 3 hours. Everything he'd sacrificed, everyone he'd hurt, all the bridges he'd burned, it had all been for nothing. And Lily, the woman he'd tried to destroy, had built something real from the ashes of what he'd done to her. That night, Lily put Grace to bed, listened to her daughter's breathing even out into sleep, and thought about how far they'd come. From a hospital bed where she'd been exploited at her most vulnerable, to a home they owned, to a life they'd built together. She thought about Marcus sometimes, but not with anger. With something closer to pity. He'd had everything. A wife who loved him, a daughter on the way, genuine respect earned through honest work. And he'd thrown it all away chasing an image of success that was as hollow as his character. "Your daddy made a choice," she whispered to sleeping Grace. "He chose ambition over integrity, image over substance, cruelty over kindness. And someday, when you're old enough, I'll teach you the most important lesson I learned from all of this. True success isn't about how high you climb by stepping on others. It's about how you treat people when you have power over them. The best revenge isn't destroying someone who hurt you, though Marcus had certainly destroyed himself. The best revenge is building a life so fulfilling, so genuine, so rooted in integrity that their absence from it becomes irrelevant. Marcus Thompson thought he won by being smarter, more ruthless, more calculating than everyone else. But he'd confused intelligence with cruelty, strategy with exploitation, success with selfishness. And in the end, those confusions cost him everything he claimed to value. Lily learned that sometimes the worst thing someone does to you becomes the catalyst for discovering who you really are. That vulnerability can become strength. That the people who try to break you often end up revealing your unbreakable core. She learned that family isn't just blood, it's Margaret staying up late preparing legal documents. It's the nurse who called security when Marcus got aggressive. It's the community of women who shared their stories and lifted each other up. And she learned that justice, real justice, isn't just about winning in court. It's about refusing to let someone else's cruelty define your worth. It's about transforming pain into purpose, trauma into advocacy, survival into triumph. If this story touched you, if it reminded you that powerless and defeated are just temporary conditions until you decide they're not, then share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because somewhere right now, there's a woman in a hospital bed being told to sign something she shouldn't sign. And she needs to know that fighting back is possible. That winning is possible. That rebuilding is possible. Marcus tried to write Lily's ending. Instead, he wrote his own.